trend of having dwarfs at European courts during the 17th and 18th centuries reflects the perception of these individuals as living toys for the wealthy rather than full-fledged members of society. It was cruel and inhumane. Ancient Chinese practiced a form of foot binding on young girls, involving the breaking of toes and bending of feet to make them smaller and more attractive. In 1866, Liechtenstein sent an army of 80 men to participate in the Austro-Prussian War. They returned with 81 men, having suffered no casualties and forming a friendship along the way. The term gymnastics, stemming from the Greek exercise naked, suggests that ancient athletes engaged in physical activities without clothing. The War of the Bucket in 1325 between Italian city-states, Bologna and Modena, is a historical anomaly where two rival cities went to war over a stolen bucket. During the Renaissance in Europe, it was fashionable for women to wear wigs made from the real hair of animals, such as horses and badgers. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs wore wigs to conceal their baldness, which was considered a sign of lower status. In medieval Europe, pillows filled with lavender and even crushed mummies were used as remedies for insomnia. In Japan during the Edo period, 17th–19th century, red teeth coloring was considered a fashionable sign of beauty and social status. In ancient Greek culture, a high forehead was considered a symbol of beauty, leading many women to remove hair from their foreheads.
In ancient Egypt, cats were considered sacred animals and were buried with their owners in luxurious tombs. In ancient Greece, the Olympic Games were held for married women, at which a prize was drawn a bear vessel with olive oil. The Vikings only wore horned helmets for weddings and holidays. In battle, they used simple leather or metal helmets. In 1683, the Turkish army was besieging Vienna, and the city's defenders drank coffee for inspiration. After the victory over the Turks, coffee became popular in Vienna. In the Middle Ages, Europeans did not wash for years, believing that water softened the skin and opened the pores to the plague. In the United States, Prohibition prohibited the sale of alcohol from 1920 to 1933. As a result, the number of bandits, smugglers, and moonshine poisoning increased. The invention of jeans by Levi Strauss in 1853 was originally aimed at workers to have durable, wearable clothing. After the revolution in Russia, the communists wanted to destroy the bourgeois institution of the family and legalize comradely marriages without registration. But the idea failed. Samurai in ancient Japan painted their teeth black, thus demonstrating loyalty to the clan and readiness to die at any moment. In ancient China, there was a custom of burying living people along with their deceased owners. This was done so that the deceased would not get bored and would have servants and slaves with them in the afterlife.
Ancient Egyptians used dung as fuel for heating and cooking. It was a cheap and readily available resource. In the 18th century, many Europeans wore wigs made from the hair of executed criminals. These wigs were considered a fashionable accessory. In medieval Europe, there were competitions for the live cat eating. It was considered entertainment for the common people. Ancient Mayans practiced a strange ritual of tearing off the nails of noble individuals as a sign of mourning for a deceased ruler. In medieval Europe, husbands could publicly beat their wives, and it was not considered a crime.
In ancient Egypt, pharaohs adorned their lips with green lipstick made from copper and rust. Unfortunately, it's true. Green lips were considered a symbol of the pharaoh's power and divinity. Medieval knights wore the same lower undergarments for years without taking them off. Alas, it's true. Wearing the same pants was considered a sign of bravery. No wonder knights had a reputation. Chinese emperors kept several virgins in their bedrooms to warm their beds. Unfortunately, it's not fiction. They were called bed warmers. Quite a peculiar custom, wouldn't you agree? Pirates carried venomous spiders and snakes to frighten captives. Pure truth. They used poisonous creatures during interrogations and torture. Gives you the shivers, doesn't it?
Ancient Romans used mouse brains as toothpaste. They believed it strengthened teeth. King Louis XVI of France did not wash his whole life, considering it harmful. His rooms were constantly fumigated with incense to kill the smell. In the Middle Ages, tests such as water immersion were sometimes used to determine the guilt of suspects. If a person drowned, it means he is guilty. When toothbrushes were first invented, they were advertised as a remedy for masturbation. It was believed that rubbing with a toothbrush would weakened sexual desire. In ancient times, it was believed that the earth was flat. People were afraid to swim far into the ocean for fear of falling off the edge of the earth. The Victorian era was named after Queen Victoria of England. At this time, even the word legs was considered obscene, so the legs of tables and chairs were covered with special covers.
The oldest human footprints in Tanzania date back 3.7 million years. This demonstrates the ancient roots of humanity on the African continent. The 1979 Swedish protests against the pathologization of homosexuality showed the power of civil society and the importance of fighting for minority rights. The use of wigs in the Baroque era was often dictated not only by fashion, but also by attempts to hide the effects of syphilis, including hair loss. The name of the fruit avocado comes from the Aztec word for the male sex glands, due to the similarity of shape. Warning signs outside houses in Pompeii, such as "Beware of the evil dog," reflected the everyday realities of that time. The Mongol conquerors brutally suppressed the resistance of cities along the Silk Road, completely destroying them. But trade routes remained safe.
Hermes was the patron, not only of travelers and thieves, but also of shepherds. Ancient Greeks considered him the protector of livestock husbandry. Athena originally was a goddess of the household and women's crafts. Only later did she become associated with wisdom and war. Hades, the god of the underworld, was the only deity whose name ancient Greeks were afraid to speak aloud. Aphrodite was born from sea foam, but her symbol was not a fish or mollusk. It was a dove. According to one version, the nymph Aphros took the form of a dove to represent the goddess. The 12 labors of Heracles were devised by his nephew Hermes. He did this so that the hero could atone for the murder of his own family. He was unusually tall for his time, almost 2 meters. In the 17th century, this seemed simply gigantic. He had a passion for everything unusual and rare. He assembled astonishing collections of anatomical specimens, minerals, and curious items from all corners of the globe. He adored dental procedures and allowed dentists to even pull out his healthy teeth for amusement. He introduced the first beard tax in history, obliging the wealthy to pay if they wanted to wear a beard against the fashion. In his free time, this person loved working as a simple carpenter or labor incognito on shipyards and factories. Who are we talking about? Of course, the great Russian Emperor Peter I. He was truly a very colorful and eccentric ruler for his time.